really kind of skipping. I emailed my professor.
We went through the whole page.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me a second.
We're gonna overlap on words.
I
was gonna say empowering the pig. It's just
he's like all women are It's like when you're writing an essay and you're searching up
Empowering words.
your screen's
like something's
talking like this. Oh my god.
Yeah, because I mean, this is my screen.
Yeah.
Those are Dodge.
You got it.
I just throw my shit on.
What was it yesterday?
Who's ready? Oh yeah, we saw her. I was hoping someone would vlog. Wait, what's the question? I wasn't being that my normal.
Woman is hard.
Okay, good.
It's like, well, my laptop.
Either way.
It's like, I can't pay for this. Just tell people to start on that.
We slay.
An hour.
My laptop.
Eric, you can stay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Being a woman is resilient.
Brilliant.
Where's Steven?
Being a woman is resilient.
How you meant like two
Smiling like
I was when I get
Hey, I'm talking about your interview I did the other day. Yeah, I'm Lindsay Guile via Canvas. Just share me some love. Are you scared?
No, she's not gonna be like that.
I saw you gonna like.
You should ask Lauren.
We'll be okay. I am. At all. I can't figure out this one.
I'm gonna randomly give you one.
Also, I need you to see the
Being a woman is a blessing.
I don't have much.
A miracle. I'm like looking at
Sorry.
what I'm saying, like.
Sorry.
Be the last one.
To be the last one.
Oh, what's up? You need a flip the chair. Wait, who actually made the Eric and the girls group? Oh, you made this. He's like one of my nice speakers.
I was like, am I in this?
There you go. Go, Chris. You can left that intentionally. I can't travel. Yeah, they're like, no.
Me, my sister, six on the group chat. Can you check how you're doing? Like maybe your
Just get away from me. Eric just started clicking random numbers. He actually knows. Mom, I press bunch of things. It works like. Chris. Haley, Chris, and Jaya. I don't have access to yours. I don't have stuff.
I don't either.
Is that Emma?
Emma? Why did Emma not say anything the whole time?
Every night.
Oh my god.
Let's focus on going to get the ice cream.
Go for it.
Keep stepping on my skirt. I've never had one. I had a shot in childhood. My first one. Really? Oh my god, that's so exciting. Give us a review. It's like the Kit Kat. It's the Kit Kat stuff inside. Okay. Yeah. Oh my god. You have it? Me and Haley. You guys are no, did I not take it? I should have. I'll be on your side because I know from the God. I can protect you.
How are you? Yes, that's like a room.
I would stay, but I think it's FaceTime.
How are you?
Really, day
That
after.
other number? That was tomorrow.
My weight.
I was taking a video. I can think she was like right behind me.
I don't know. Well, how are you?
I'm
winning.
You think we were all standing up to get it? It's cold. It's ice cream.
Midterm's going.
I'm just saying.
Fine. Every animal have any.
I would say so. It's may have learned, like, I started using the habit tracker.
I do feel something. It's probably philosophical. You know, my free time.
So, like, I'll check it out.
Like that. So,
I'm saying Emma. And then I just saw added Emma to the conversation. So I just think I should add Emma.
I forgot about it.
It's like, oh my god. Number, but like, something like a habit tracker. Like, one, but
What do you have an exciting picture?
this is like a good thing.
Stay
Oh.
How did you add it?
I was typing in Emma's house.
Yeah, because they were paying us first. Like, we're not allowed to go out. So.
Welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I hope everyone had the opportunity to get some ice cream. We're feeling very festive. Actually, we're submitting our chapter report tomorrow, so that's definitely a reason for us to celebrate. Welcome you all. Do you have any first timer by any chance? We have one first timer. Awesome. Welcome. Two. One more here. Okay. Awesome. Hey. So let me introduce myself to you guys. I'm Gustavo, one of the co-presidents here at AMA.
President.
And we are the American Marketing Association, USF, so we are a chapter of this international organization with other 320 chapters all over the US, Canada, and Puerto Rico. And we're very proud to say that we are a top 15 chapter here at our university. Yay. We'll just celebrate that as well. So we meet every Tuesday here at 4:45, same room, always offering different professional development or even fun opportunities for you guys to get together. And yes, not much more about that. So what's happening today? As always, we're going to talk a little bit about important announcements in AMA. We also have a special guest from PLS Logistics to share a little bit about their company with us. And then finally, we have Ceara here, right there. She's going to work on a LinkedIn and resume workshop with us guys. So very excited about that as well.
So mark your calendars. Tomorrow, March 1st, first day of Women's History Month. So excited. And membership and marketing are collaborating with their scavenger hunt. So more information on that later. Friday, March 3rd is the Spring of Tampa Bay Social Impact event. And then Thursday, March 9th is our Lunch and Learn focusing on graphic design. And then March 11th to March 19th, spring break. Does anyone have fun plans? What's your plans?
Seattle.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yay. You have your hand up?
Paris.
Oh.
That is so
Ruined it for everybody, Isabel. Texas.
AMA here, we function like a business. If you're a first timer, we encourage you all to sign up for one of the companies. We have podcasts, marketing, finance and fundraising, case, social impact, mentorship, DI, and events. So different opportunities for you guys to be involved. And just build up your resume and get some professional experience. And yes, if you're interested in learning more about each company, then just please come talk to anyone on a blue polo, and your guys gonna plug you in. Awesome. So AMA News, a few announcements.
So the scavenger hunt is going to be tomorrow. Starts at 4:30 to 6 p.m. And we ask that everyone RSVP tonight so we can make teams. This event is mainly to integrate e-board and current members into our newer members. So I highly recommend going if you can. It's open to all business and advertising majors, and you can bring your friends as long as they RSVP by tonight.
We'll have prizes for the winning team.
Cool.
And then social impact, they're going to Spring of Tampa Bay Donation Center this Friday. RSVP is already closed. But this is a reminder if you're one of you can sign up.
Awesome. And highlights on here. Today is the last day to pre-order our AMA hoodie. Especially if you're going to ICC, I highly recommend you to order one so you can support your AMA USF route everywhere. Yes, you just visit us on our website. At this point, I think you guys are all used to it. /shop, and you can pre-order your hoodie. Just $37. I pre-ordered mine. Very excited for the day it will come.
And then membership, if you haven't registered already, the membership price is $45 for a full year, and that breaks down to less than $4 a month. So if you haven't already, fill out that QR code. We'll scan that QR code. It'll be a new member form, and you can talk to Sydney, our director of membership. If you have any questions about that, and everyone gets their first 3 meetings free. Needs to scan this.
And stay updated, guys. So please follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We have our LinkedIn page. We have our new LinkedIn newsletter. So many ways for you to get updated on everything that AMA does. And also feel free to text AMA USF to A1010 to get reminders also via text. So there's no way you can miss any of the opportunities we offer here to you all. Awesome. So right now we have a PLS logistics moment. We have Andrew coming up to talk to us. Andrew, do you have a specific presentation to share?
Yeah. Do you have a?
Yes, you have an.
No problem.
Thank you, sorry.
Hey everybody, so thank you guys so much for having me. I know it's kind of short notice and I'm running a little bit late, but I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm not from here, so I did not underestimate the traffic today. So I'm glad to be here. Kind of want to talk to you a little bit about my company. I work for PLS Logistics Services. I'll tell you a little bit what we do, our company background, and kind of our positions that we have available. By a show of hands, how many of you are seniors graduating soon? Some. How many are like sophomores and juniors? That's you. And then freshmen? No freshmen. Okay, awesome. So a lot of this and a lot of what I do is going to probably relate more towards the seniors, just because we are looking definitely in May and June. Those are our big classes that we're looking to get people in the door and kind of start. But of course, for our sophomores and juniors as well, we do have some internships available. So if this is something that you're interested in, we can always talk about internships or full-time opportunities after graduation as well. So if you would like to go to the next slide. So the PLS. So first off, before I get into this, raise your hand if you know what a 3PL or third-party logistics company does. You got one. So basically, I'll give you kind of the easy way to know what a 3PL is. If you have a company that has something that needs shipped, it could be little business cards, it could be tables, chairs, raw materials, food and beverage is a big one. A lot of companies, they don't have their own shipping within their company. Maybe a lot of the bigger companies do, but a lot of companies outsource that towards small carriers around the country that basically they pick up like little contracts for one-on-one basis and then ship their goods, say from Tampa to Houston, Texas. So a 3PL, what we do is we fill in that gap. We're the middleman, we're the brokerage person in between. So we reach out to companies that they're like, hey, we have X amount of items that we need shipped from point A to point B. And then we are like, okay, good, we got a contract. Let's find a carrier that can move it there in a timely manner so we can make money. So that's pretty much what third-party logistics is. That's what we are. So right here, this is the PLS story. So we were founded in Pittsburgh. That's where we got our name, Pittsburgh Logistics System. We just kind of put that down to PLS with a really small company. So in 1991, nobody in this room was probably born in 1991, and I wasn't either. So we've been around for quite a while. We originally started out in Pittsburgh. We now have kind of grown throughout the country. That's kind of where I come in. So I do live and I work out of Pittsburgh, but we have our branch offices in Tampa, Jacksonville, Dallas, Texas, St. Louis, Philadelphia. So we have offices around the country that you can go and work at and kind of do this fun job. So kind of on the other side, with 1999 under that, we launched PLS Pro, which is a web-based transportation management system, or a TMS. That's what we call it in the industry. Basically, I would dumb it down, or not dumb it down, but kind of refer to, if you have Amazon and you order something and you can track your package from where it's at, from point A to point B, that's basically a TMS, but on a bigger scale for larger corporations. 2013 to 2016, that was really our first time when we really expanded and grew. So you can see a lot of the offices that we have, and we had some of those, like Phoenix, it's not there anymore. We've kind of consolidated it to like 1 or 2 people, but of course like Tampa's there as well. And then 2020 to the present, so that's where we come into the picture now. We have PLS Pro 3.0, which is yet another TMS. It's kind of our own software that we built. We outsourced it, so it's really our product that we sell to other companies that they can use to track their shipments and everything like that. And then, of course, we had our acquisition. We were a growing company, 500 plus employees. We're always looking to kind of acquire new companies and kind of build new locations. I know Charlotte, we used to have an office and then it went away, but we're looking to add another office there as well. We're constantly kind of growing as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. So this is just kind of a little bit slide. I'll kind of skip this right there. His name is Greg Burns. He's our CEO. He has a really cool story. So how many of you guys have seen The Wolf of Wall Street? Some people. The whole thing is about Jordan Belfort and penny stocks, brokerage, stuff like that. I don't understand it. I've seen the movie, funny movie. But Greg Burns, that's really where he got his start, kind of in the stock market. He kind of got his net worth there. And then he's really a big entrepreneur, and he saw PLS as a big up and coming company, kind of wanted to get into the 3PL space because the 3PL industry, it's very competitive. There's tons of other companies that do the same thing, but he wanted to see if we can adapt, and that's where our like PLS Pro 3.0, stuff like that comes into play, where we really kind of have a competitive advantage towards other companies. So we can go to the next one. This is a little bit more about us. So right there, that looks pretty weird with all the lines going, but that's really where we can ship things all across the country. We ship in every state. We even go into Canada and New Mexico, so all our Mexico throughout North America. Any company that has something to ship, we can work with them because pretty much our carriers that we work with can get anything from point A to point B. So we typically do about 1 million loads per year. You can see the $1.2 billion in freight under management. That just kind of encompasses all of our shipments and everything like that. 55,000 active carriers. That's really key because a lot of other 3PLs, they might not have that big of a network that we do. So we can really always find something from point A to B, which is awesome. And then kind of with our clients as well, any company you can name, we could possibly work with as long as they have shipping needs. So right here, here's a list of like our companies that we work with. These are a lot of the big ones. We do everything from small mom and pop shops and maybe like a small producer all the way up to your big Fortune 100 companies. Like you can see Pepsi, Aldi, US Steel is a big one. The one I always like to point out, it's this Rico's. Does anybody know what Rico's makes? Nobody? So it's basically nacho cheese. So they are like the largest producer. I don't know if I wouldn't call them a monopoly, but they are one of the largest producers of nacho cheese. So if you get nacho cheese anywhere, if you go to like a Lightning game or a Rays game or something like that and you get nachos, chances are your nacho cheese came from Rico's. But pretty much we have a ton of different companies that we work with. And that's the cool thing about logistics is you're not kind of stuck into one area of business, such as like food and beverage or raw materials. You can work with any company as well. So here's a little bit about our technology. So like I said, this is kind of the PLS 3.0, our TMS, and it kind of shows you this is our side of it. So you can kind of see that top section, kind of a lot that goes into kind of figuring out the paths that your trucks will go on, as well as down here, it gives you kind of the market averages and everything like that. So really, I know this might seem, I know I'm speaking to a lot of people that are in marketing, but within the sales world, you don't really need to have, like, say, a supply chain background. What we do here at PLS, it's really kind of helps you learn about the logistics industries. All of our softwares are pretty intuitive. They're very easy to work with. Myself on the recruiting team, I've been trained on a lot of these. So if I can do it, anybody else can do it, which is pretty simple. And then right here, this is kind of the customer side. So like I had said, going about with like a TMS, that bottom part, which is really cool because that's what our customers see. So they can track and actively see where their shipments are at. So if they do have something going from, say, Tampa to, we'll say, California, they can see, oh, my shipment was picked up 2 days ago. Currently, it's in Nevada or something like that. So it's a really intuitive software, and that's something that we can provide to our clients to kind of make sure that they have that sense of it feeling that their product's on their way. It's not going to be late, which looks good on us, and it's always good for the customer. So here, you can be the next piece. For all the seniors that I've pointed out, this is the perfect time if you guys are thinking about looking for jobs. I would be more than happy to speak with you guys if this is something kind of within the sales world that you're interested in. If sales isn't for you, you can always talk to me. We do have other positions that might be available that we can always kind of see if there's something that works out as well. So I'll go over these really briefly. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but our account executive trainee, this is our bread and butter. Our account executives, that's the big sales position that we have. They are in charge of reaching out to the companies, finding what kind of contracts they can get. This kind of goes into what they do. I know if you're looking at this, you see the 200 scripted calls per day. That does seem like a lot, but I always like to break it down that it's actually not as bad as you think. We provide all the leads for you. You just have to call these companies. You're going to hear a lot of rejection. You're going to hear a lot of no's, which nobody ever wants to hear, but it's just kind of part of the territory with this role. And then we have our logistics coordinator role. This is kind of more on the back end side. This is pretty much just they do all the back end work. So once our account executives get a contract, our logistics coordinators plug it in, make sure everything's running smoothly, everything gets picked up on time, everything's running smoothly on time, and everything gets there on time. So logistics coordinators are very important to everything that we do. So this is another active position that we have open as well. So if sales isn't something that you're super interested in, but maybe you're very organized, you're very detail oriented, this might be a position that might be interesting to you as well. So right here, here's a little bit about the company, kind of the benefits that we offer. So we have a competitive base salary. It kind of depends on the office. Our base salary here in Tampa, it is at $52,000 as a base. We do offer uncapped commission from day one. So anytime you make a deal with a company and you send a shipment, you make commission off of that, and that's awesome. We always love to see our account executives make more money through commission. And structured promotion. We have 9 different levels of promotion within this role. So there's plenty of room for growth, plenty of new goals set for you. So if that's something that you're interested in, being in a goal-oriented position where there's room for growth, room for improvement, new goals, challenges, everything like that, this might be a position for you. Our benefits, pretty typical medical, dental, vision, 401k, but the key one you might see there is unlimited PTO. Some companies do this, not a lot of companies do it. Unlimited PTO, from my personal experience, it is amazing because a lot of you, none of you are in the working world, but one day you will be, and you'll see, oh, I only get 15 days of PTO for the year. You really have to kind of budget and make sure, oh, I'm going on vacation for 5 days, so I only have 10 days. The unlimited PTO is awesome because you just takes that stress away. You can kind of go on your vacations. If you need to take a day off here or there, it's super helpful. So definitely, if this isn't a company for you, look for a company that has unlimited PTO because it is honestly the best thing ever. Definitely from being in the world of only having like 15 days off and stuff like that. And then the last thing is kind of the growth, like I brought up. We have paid training. So if you don't know anything about logistics, we do train you to get you up to speed on everything as quickly as possible. We have continuous learning. So if there's any shifts in like the markets, any new logistic things that come up, we do have new trainings constantly to keep you up to speed so we can give our customers the best foot forward. And then our strong track record of upward mobility. All of our managers, all of our assistant managers, even an example, our COO, they have all started out in that account executive trainee program and they have worked their way up. So we don't really like to hire from outside for a lot of those management roles. So if that is something that you in the future kind of aspire to be like an assistant manager or manager, this is a good company to kind of get your foot in the door and really grow and get up the ladder quickly. You can skip this one. So here, this is kind of what the freight broker is, like how I described it earlier, so we can skip that one as well. And here's a little bit about our company culture. We kind of like to do a lot of fun events. Definitely being in the sales world, it's very competitive. So it's a very work hard, play hard mentality. If you come in, you hit your goals, you're doing well, you'll see that on the compensation side with commission and promotions and all that fun stuff. But also we have a lot of fun. We do weekly games of who's going to get the most new clients, or monthly, who gets the most money in sales. And we do like fun little gift cards and different kind of prizes like that. So there's always competition. There's always a competitive atmosphere to always try to kind of make everybody sure that they're pushing to get to that next goal. Skip that. So here's just like a little community outreach. Unfortunately, these are all in Cranberry. That's where I'm from. And the slides are a little bit outdated, but you can just kind of see a lot of the stuff that we like to do. I know in a lot of our branch offices, we are trying to kind of push to be more active in the community, do food drives, do kind of donations, things like that. Just kind of get the name out there, but this is kind of what we've done in the past as well. And that's a little bit more, a lot of donating food. And this is the other thing, final thing I'll kind of point out to you. In a lot of sales position, a lot of companies, they do something similar to this. They do like their President's Club. This is our Chairman's Club getaway. So if you are one of those top performers, if you are kind of being a rock star, crushing your goals and everything like that, we do all these like fun retreats throughout the year, or once a year usually, with the CEO and a lot of the executives. So it's usually to nice, fun places like this. This is what I imagine Tampa looked like, because I'm from Pittsburgh and everything, the skies are constantly gray. I luckily escaped snow, but I've enjoyed the weather so far. But you can go to more fun places like this if that's something that you're kind of striving for in the future as well. So thanks for coming. Thank you guys for letting me this is a company-made PowerPoint. I would have changed that. But I'm going to leave some business cards and a couple materials. Maybe I'll leave it. Can I leave it on that table? So if anybody has any questions, Here's my business card. It has my email, my phone number as well. You can reach out to me if this is something you're interested in kind of pursuing, or you just wanted to talk about, maybe learn a little bit more. Please feel free to grab a business card, reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to be in touch with you guys. But thank you guys so much. Sorry I was a couple minutes late, but hope you guys have a good rest of your meeting and have fun kind of building those resumes, because that is key. We'll leave all this stuff up on this front table for you guys.
So moving on with the agenda, we have Ceara now coming to us.
Not really? Okay, I was like, I always ask people who are from up there. Cool, all right. So you guys get really want to
outside Oreo part,
an hour ago. Hello, y'all. How's it going? Good. I'd love to hear it. I guess I should just go to the. They give me a clicker. I was like, this is fancy in here. And I like to walk around, so I feel like I'm gonna do a lot of Jordan Zimmerman hands and gestures. I'm a marketer, CEO, pay attention, sort of thing. I always like to start with the first slide and tell people my name is Ceara. I always put a pronunciation guide up there for names because I also do personal branding, and I'm like, as a reformed introvert, I always like to tell people, don't let anybody mispronounce your name. It belongs to you, and it is super important to let people know you're staking your claim on this planet. So I used to tell people, well, I was introverted, they're like, is it Ceara or Ceara? And I was like, it doesn't matter. And then they called me Ceara, and I'm like, that's not what my mom named me, but it's my fault because I told them to call me whatever. So now I'm always super clear. My name is Ceara. Lovely to meet y'all. As far as education, I did go to USF to receive my undergraduate degree, and then I came back for my master's degree. I don't have my undergrad degree up there, but right now they have the IPRA, and I recognize a few of you because I've been doing my rounds in all throughout the Z School. And so now they have IPRA. They added that the semester before I graduated, so I didn't get to add it. I was like, I wanted to have a Bachelor of Science, but now I'm like, now I seem like I just do art. I'm like, I swear I know how to do science and I know how to count, I swear. So my full degree, undergrad, is mass communications with a concentration in advertising and certificates in general business and also visualization and design. Big joke in my family of who the hell can remember Ceara's long ass undergrad degree? The answer is no one. It's just me. But while I was in undergrad, I originally started as a marketer, and I was like, I don't want to come over here and show my face because I was shameful, and I was like, I gotta go. I'm actually gonna go do mass comm, but I was a marketing student originally. And then I was actually sitting in the Z School just waiting for my speech class to start. And then I'm like sitting up against a very tight space like wall, and there was a poster. And it was like, do you like writing? I was like, yeah. They're like, are you creative? And I was like, I think so. I'm like, switch to mass comm. I'm like, you bet your bottom I will. So I did. I actually switched my major that day. And I've been there ever since. And I'm like, it's a lot of fun, really creative. I still love my marketers, but I'm like, y'all not getting to use colors in the way that I get to. But while I was in undergrad, I was also in ad club. I was in PRSSA. I would pop into the occasional marketing meeting, not a ton because I was really preoccupied over there. And I got to the point where I was on executive board for ad club, so I'd have to bring in a lot of guest speakers. And every time I would bring them, I would badger them with questions and like, what are you looking for when you're hiring? What interests you in an intern? What are the things that we need to know to get the people the jobs? And it was very funny because I'm like, I reformed introvert. I never used to like to talk to anybody. So I was like, I'm doing the work for the people. I have to. So that's how what I'm going to go through is that's how I procured all the information I'm going to share with you today. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to try to go quickly because I'm trying to get y'all out of here, but keep it informative at the same time. So like I said, my current education is my master's degree in advertising. I always love to tell people, if you are an advertiser, you don't need a master's degree to be successful. I am a child of immigrant parents, so they're like, education is important. I'm like, I guess, I'm just kidding. I actually really like school. So I'm like, I was lucky because I love school. I was like, I'll keep going till the wheels fall off. They fell off at the master's degree. I was like, I got enough education. We're good to go. And so now I take all the information that I've learned at USF and like from harassing all the professionals out in Tampa, and I share that with everyone. And I always tell people that's my side hustle. I'm a writing and branding consultant. Anything having to do with the way your resume looks, your actual personal branding, all of that I have done, designed for other people, just because I started doing it for myself. And I was like, why not do it for other people? I'm like, I get to meet everybody. I get to give them something. So it was really fun for me, but I gotta make money, y'all. I'm like, I always tell the students, I do this for free now, my side hustle of helping you guys, because I know that y'all are poor. And how do I know that? Because I know what your pockets look like, because they look a little bit like mine. So I'm like, I have to make money somehow. And how I do that, I'm a copywriter at PPK. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it is a very prestigious Tampa ad agency. Some of them are saying it's the best agency. That's not what I'm saying. That's what they're saying on the streets. But I remember when I switched to mass comm, the first thing I did was like Google best Tampa ad agencies, and PBK came up, and I was like, that'd be cool to work there one day. And I'm like, not me living my dreams right now. That's crazy. I couldn't have planned it better for myself. And just in case you're not familiar, any of the words that you hear or see in advertising are referred to as copy. So as a copywriter, I write all the words that you see in the ads. And then of course, you guys know marketing, or same thing in advertising. If you hear anybody say accounts, that usually is just referring to the brands that you work with. My accounts that I work with are Tasty Cake and Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread dropped their bread off of their name and their logo a while ago. But show of hands, is anybody familiar with Tasty Cake? Got it. Is anybody who's familiar with Tasty Cake from the Northeast? Yeah, where are you from?
Northeast.
Northeast? Yeah. Are you from?
Oh, from the Bronx.
Got it. Got it. That's our demographic. I always like to see who is familiar with Tasty Cake, because I'm like, every day I go to work and they're like, we're a regional brand, Ceara, your task, make us national. I'm like, I will do my best. I am trying. So I'm always trying to figure out who knows what about Tasty Cake, but they're just like a snack cake brand, and our top competitors are, of course, Hostess, Little Debbie, all of the big ones. So that is what I do, but I just like to give you guys a quick little intro, use my little clicker, and we're on to the next one. I like to walk around, so I'm gonna keep on doing that. So like I said, this is all the information that I've collected on how to wow the hiring managers and the recruiters and what they're looking for when you bring your resume to them. I will preface this with saying I have a lot to get through, and what I will say is if you're on Resume TikTok and you see me in the comments, look past it, because I'm cussing people out and lying to you. I love to show an image of a resume that's perfectly fine, and they're like, don't do this. This is horrific. Here's what you need to do. The perfect tips, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wrong. Resume, the first thing you need to know about resumes is always industry specific, and there's nothing anyone can tell you outside of marketing that will work for you. I've had people come to me with like boring templates that don't make sense for marketing. I've had people show me like engineering templates. I'm like, this is not going to get you a job at all. So don't listen to those fools on TikTok, and I will continue to cuss them out until my work is complete. So first rules of don'ts, no matter the industry, this is always 100% true. Never do a 2-page resume. The average amount of time that a recruiter or hiring manager will look at your resume, 6 seconds. That is not a lot of time. So it's like, they don't have time to read 1 page. They definitely do not have time to read 2. So do not submit a 2-page resume. And I've asked people, and they will tell me, they will go as far as like hiring managers saying, I will toss out a resume that is 2 pages immediately. Especially as marketers, it's like, if you can't communicate what you need to tell me in the fewest amount of words, you don't know how to do your job to the best of your ability. So I'm like, it is unfortunate, but it is the way of the world, and it's just business, and you have to do 1 page only. And if you don't know how to express yourself in 1 page, I'm going to tell you, you got to do some more personal branding, due diligence, and work on that. Next one up here, don't use cursive fonts. I see people try to get fancy with their resume. Again, you have 6 seconds. Don't make it harder for them to figure out what it is they're trying to learn about you, and make sure you're a good candidate for the position. When I do this presentation, I also do it for my advertising people, like creative advertising. And if you end up in creative marketing, the design is going to be super important about your resume. So I like to make sure you can have a design forward resume, but make sure you don't do those things that are going to hinder you in terms of figuring out the information. Always information first, design second, every single time. So then we have, don't have gigantic fonts. Most marketers, I'm like, yet. Most marketers don't have to worry about having a logo, but I'm like, I have come across marketers who have made their own logos because there's a lot of interwovenness that happens between marketing and our advertising. Just make sure the hierarchy of your information is visibly or visually pleasing and it makes sense. A lot of the times, if they're looking for somebody who is creative forward and you don't know how to exemplify that through your resume, that is the fastest way to get rejected for the job, because if you don't know how to do it for yourself, I promise you, you don't know how to do it for my business, and I cannot trust you to do that with these people who I've been building relationships with for years. So always keep that in mind. Next thing we have, don't include a photo of yourself. I get a lot of flack from people, especially my PR people. They like to be like, I like to put a photo and it separates me. I'm like, okay, listen, I'm not telling you shouldn't do a photo every single time, but what I'm telling you is what I've heard from hiring managers. They don't like to see a photo, and that's actually like a resume building rule. There's like a big no-no. Everyone knows you don't do that. And then finally, I was in meetings with people and I'm like, why don't we do a photo? What is the reason behind that? And hiring managers and recruiters have told me it's because we don't want to make discriminatory assumptions about you based off of how you look. And I'm like, got it. See, no one was telling us that, and everyone was like, I'm going to do it because I want to. I'm like, absolutely do what you want. I will never tell you what to do with your resume. It belongs to you. I will give you suggestions based off of what I know. But if you want to put a photo, for sure, go for it. Do I think it's a good idea? Not for every single place, not for every single job, especially not for every single industry. So it's really up to you. Questions on any of this so far? Beautiful. Next one, don't write I statements. I always say it's your resume. It has your name at the top. We know it belongs to you. Don't waste precious time getting into, I work here. Here is what I did. Just like start with information, boom, 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 and go. And that's usually how all resumes are written. And you'll see like on Canva, I always send people to Canva because it's the easiest place to get any sort of designed resumes. If you are a designer, I do challenge people, like make your own resume. It's a great way to familiarize yourself with like Adobe software if that's what you're into. But you definitely don't have to have a good resume. So don't write I statements. Next one, vibrant, clashing color scheme. Again, I know my marketers are creative. I know that for a fact, but not everybody comes in with a training of creative work. And so sometimes they're like, Ceara told me to use color. I'm free to go. I'm like, great. And then they come in with these like lime greens and pinks and highlighter yellow. And I'm like, I have to break their hearts very gently because that is not appealing. And it's like, you have to remember, not only are they assessing you for the skills on your resume, they also want to make sure that you know how to present them in a visibly or aesthetically pleasing way is what they would say. Not 100% are like relevant to every single marketer, but like I said, I got to do a super broad reaching just in case any of you are creative marketers. But if you're going into sales, they're not going to be like, where's your colors? What's going on? What are you doing here? It's not as relevant for those jobs. But you could submit a resume with colors and have it be beautiful and be like, wow, double skills, or good at sales, and you know how to design, great. But just keep that in mind in terms of the visuals of your resume. Then final one, kind of repetitive, but I have to keep saying this over and over. Don't write full paragraphs. We don't have time to read all of that. So you have to be mindful about being super succinct, but as specific as possible. So I'm like, whenever I see people with look, they'll give me bullet points of their resume of what they have done like for their jobs. If they say it in 30 words and I think they could say it in 20, I challenge them. I'm like, go back, go do it in 20. And if they do it in 20, I'm like, you could do it in fewer. I'm like, take it to 10. People don't like that, but I'm like, it's a big challenge for yourself as a writer, and then also making sure that you are always making sure that you know how to make the information as brief as possible, because that's what marketing is all about. Go, 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 go. Give me the information now. So it's really good practice to do that on your resume. Questions on the don'ts before we trickle on? No? Beautiful. So the do's, this is where we get to have more fun, and it gets to be more like specific to marketing. Proofread many times. I cannot tell you how many times I've been given resumes from people who are like, oh, can you just take a look at this before I submit it to my internship tomorrow? I'm like, for sure. I take a look, riddled with typos. I'm like, guess what? You're not getting the job. If you cannot put your best foot forward with your own information, I cannot trust you to do it for my brand. Simple as that. It's the fastest way to get rejected and pulled out of the pool for the candidacy of the job. So I always tell people, please proofread the work. I had somebody, it wasn't a marketer or a mass comm professional, it was somebody who was in engineering. He sent me his resume and his cover letter just to review. I was like, sure, I'll take a look. I looked at it and I was like, your name is spelled differently on your resume and your cover letter. Which one is it? He's like, oh, it's wrong on my resume. I was like, oh, you're not going to get the job. if you don't know how to spell your name, why would I trust you to build the bridges for the city? Come on now, put 2 and 2 together. And I'm like, it has to be like that because it's 1 page. If you're not going to take the time to proofread it and make sure it's error-free, I don't know what to tell you. They're going to be very upset that you even think that you have a chance to do that with their brands that they have been working with for ages. So I have to lead with that, and I have to be super mindful about all of that. Next, we have education at the top of the page. I'm walking away because my water is far away. Education at the top of the page because when you're a student, they're going to be looking for that information. And I always tell students, don't bury your information because we have to get them to like hook them in. They're going to be looking for your education, so put it at the top. Again, this is just a suggestion. You don't have to do it, but I have noticed and I have asked hiring managers. They're like, yes, if you're a student, we're going to want to know what you're filling your time with. If I have to guess why you have an internship and a job and there's like spaces in between, I'm going to be like, what were you doing? Why? It's presenting way more questions than answers, and you have to be mindful of that. So I say education at the top of the page. The next one has a star next to it because it's super important, and it is the one of the few things that people will report back to me of like, you were right, they brought it up in an interview, or it actually landed me in an interview and they talked about it. Quantify achievements. This is so important to do on your resume because there's no other way to justify what you know how to do versus like your competition, and like you're competing against people who you know as well. So I like to walk people through just like a hiring moment for a second. If I receive a resume from someone who's trying to apply for a job that's like marketing coordinator, let's say, and they just say that they've been doing it for a year, I have that information. Someone else who's only had a few marketing internships, but they tell me they've designed or they've created, let's say 40 marketing plans. They've also planned 60 events, of which they attended 11. Of those 11 events, they were able to network with 100 plus marketing professionals, which led to other things. It's like, if you can get that granular, this person is much more likely to get the interview and the job with less experience than the person who already has the same job. And that's because it's not enough anymore to say, I have done something for a year. Quantify exactly what you have done. And I always tell students, it's so liberating to count exactly what you have done. If you work at a call center, how many calls a day do you make? It's like, that is lucrative information, and it's like people sleep on themselves. They're like, that's not important, they don't care. I'm like, it's not up to you to decide what they're going to care about. What I want you to do is like own your achievements and actually put down the numbers, and it's going to be such a helpful tip for yourself and then further along when you're actually submitting your resume. Questions? Yes.
A couple. So for education, first thing, should we include years, like the time frames that we did it? Like, okay. And second question, so let's say, for example, for a year and a half or 2 years, we were switching majors, trying different things. Should we include this time to this time in separate major?
If the last major is the one that you chose and that's like more relevant for the jobs you're applying for, I would say just stick with the last one. If they're both very similar and you feel like you got enough from both of them that you want to include it, you can.
I'm saying for that time frame, because you said like if we're missing a time frame, should we include why we were missing that time frame in education?
I think in education, it won't matter as much, especially if you had a job. It's just like missing holes. If it's like, what were you doing in between?
You didn't have a job and you switch it.
Exactly. If you had nothing, they're going to be like, what were you doing? Are you hiding secrets? Were you running from the FBI? That kind of stuff. But in terms of what you're talking about, you're perfect. You could put either one if you wanted to. If you don't want the first major that you had, you don't need to put that.
How do you manage to fit all those achievements? Like, for example, you were giving that example. How do you manage to fit all that in one page?
Bullet points, and always like prioritize the information. So I always tell people, lead with the most important parts of the job that you have done. So pick the things that, like, if you were doing a marketing internship and you were in charge of like event planning plus like making marketing plans, lead with, I concepted ideas for marketing plans. I networked with people like things like that. So think of that. So like make sure it's lucrative information that is important and also like lets you shine in a way. Like pick things that you can essentially brag about. Does that make sense? Beautiful. In the back.
For these achievements, how far back should we go? Because I know some people say you shouldn't go further back than a year for your achievements or so.
Yeah. As it relates to college, I tell people don't go to high school. So pick whatever it is that you studied in university and then like whatever else you have moving forward. If you're talking about how many jobs to include, I always tell people 2 to 3, if that's what you're asking, because I think I missed the first part of what you were saying.
For both would be.
Yeah, 2 to 3 of your most recent experiences, or some people have a ton of experience. I'm like, pick your 2 to 3 favorites or the ones where you learned the most. Is that helpful? Excellent. Yes.
So a lot of resumes like suggest to add volunteer work to it.
Mhm.
What if like a large bulk of your volunteer work was in high school? Like if you had 100+ hours in high school, but you really didn't have a lot in college because you didn't have enough time.
Yeah. I know that some people separate it and put it as like under the volunteer experience. It depends on how it fits on your layout of your resume. I couldn't tell you right now, oh, don't include it or do include it. It would depend on what layout you chose, and then we would just decide from there if that's like of utmost importance for them to know about you. Yes.
Should we include a minor or concentration?
Absolutely. Yes.
So would you only add like the relevancy of the job, not like consecutively? Or,
It depends. If you only have a few, you can add all of them. If you have a few to pick from where you can tailor the relevancy to the job, yes. Anybody else? Yes.
What about your GPA?
I get this one all the time. People will ask me, and I'm like, I've had my boss's boss. He told me, and he's one of the first people. He was like, I did hire somebody because of her GPA, and he's like, she had a 4.0, and she was also volunteering, and she was also in clubs, and he's like, that told me a lot about her. Most people in the industry who do resume work will tell you you don't need it. Now I leave it up to you. If it's something that's important to you, include it. But I will also say, as somebody who is like hardworking, straight A student, and my work is the only way that I know how to identify myself as a human being, I would stray away from doing that because you are more than numbers. And if it matters to you, put it on there. But I think it's up to you. Yes.
So when jobs require cover letters, should that be like, how similar should that be to your resume, or should it be like more detailed? Or?
Perfect question. No one ever asks me that because marketing is different than mass comm. And I'm like, in mass comm, we don't have to do as many cover letters as you guys do. Cover letters, the main thing that you have to know is don't repeat any information from your resume. Anything in your cover letter needs to be additional, and it needs to be like super personal to let them know, here is why I will make a difference at your company because of X, Y, Z, in addition to the things you know on the resume. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's good.
Beautiful. Anybody else? Yes.
Any certifications that we get, do we include it under the education or is it like a separate category?
It depends. Are you talking about certifications through the school, like 'cause I have certifications that are like considered academic minors, or you're saying certifications like
Google.
like Google, HubSpot? I would put those under like awards and achievements. Yes.
You're saying about like if like your GPA was important. I know like resumes say don't put high school under education. What if you had like some insane GPA in high school?
I would say don't put it.
Still don't put
Because
it.
at that point, it's like you're in college and it's like they don't look that far back of like, what were you doing in high school? It's more of like, what can you do for my company now based off of what you learned in university?
Got it.
Beautiful. Anybody else? Excellent. So on to the next one. Do use bullet points. Like I said, maximum amount of information, fewest amount of words. And that's always going to be the best way to do it on a resume, is just like start with the most important things and then let us know what you have achieved. Next one, always start job descriptions with a verb. This is resume standard for every single industry. So always say like managed a team of 14, concepted 14 ideas, planned 31 events, or whatever the case may be. And notice I'm always putting the numbers in there. I believe most of your bullet points should have numbers in there because if you achieved it and you accomplished it, add some numbers to it. And then the last one has a star because again, it's super important. But I never used to include it in my presentations because it's so specific, and I'm going to walk you through what you have to do it correctly. So match words and phrases from job requirements. Most marketing jobs use what is called an ATS. It stands for Application Tracking System. There are so many of you, so many people applying for jobs, and there's only so many people on the hiring team. They cannot go through everyone, especially like jobs like Disney get hundreds of thousands of resumes a day. They can't go through that by themselves. They're human beings. So they use the ATS to match words and phrases to see how compatible you are for the job. That being said, I always recommend that you match the words and phrases, but I didn't tell people this before because I'm like, I don't want you to make the mistake of picking one job and then matching the phrases from that one job and putting them on your resume and be like, good to go. I'm good to get the internship or the job. And I'm like, wrong. Whatever position you selected to put on your resume from that one company is only applicable for that one company. So I always tell people the caveat to this last one is pick the same job title from a few different places that you want to apply. Check the language there, see what is the most like recurring language, and then pull those words and put them on your resume. That's how you do this last one correctly. Because the more words in similar words and terms and phrases you have on your resume, the system is just like 100% match. So it's like as soon as you start doing that, the better and the more likely it is that you will get the interview. Questions on any of that? Beautiful. Now, after going through the do's and don'ts, I like to show some examples. So I'm going to walk you through some. These are just like examples that I pulled off the internet, so they're not like any working examples for now. But one of the things I will say to Claudia about her resume, as it relates to design, red is a very specific color to design with. And I've had hiring managers like be very swayed either direction, pros as good or bad when they see red. When you are communicating visually, it's like there's so many things that go into play of looking at a resume. I have to make a lot of assumptions. So talking to hiring managers and recruiters about red, they're like, this is a very aggressive, like yelly color. So I tell people, if you're going to include red on your resume, don't use like a fire engine red like Claudia has here. So if she was okay with deepening it, I would tell her add a little bit of black, make it more of like a maroon rather than this color red. But not to stray her away from that, because I told you, I will always say add color to your resume, add personality to your resume, and make sure it is a good representation of who you are. So that being said, that's one of the first things I would tell Claudia. Looking at her resume, one of the biggest things that kind of like has like a tick in my brain is how she has so much white space at the bottom of her resume as opposed to the top. One of the things that I could infer from that as a hiring manager is you took something off the bottom of your resume and then you didn't even have time to like look at it correctly and you just submitted your resume. That reads as lazy. So I always tell people, don't just throw your resume together and then just start applying to places. Let it sit for like a day or a few days, go back so you can catch these little tiny mistakes that have like subconscious meaning. So that's one of the things I would tell her, just highlight all the text, center it on the page. In terms of her actual design, I think this is a really great example of what would work so well for an ATS, the applicant tracking system, because the way the system works is it reads the words along the page horizontally. So it's like if you have sections that break up the text, it doesn't really know how to fix that at this point. It depends on if the company spends a lot of money on a better system. So I think this is a great example of that. One of the other things I would say to Claudia is she has her work history separate from her professional skills. Do not do that, because one of the most integral pieces of information you can get about resumes is how do you know what you know and where did you learn it? So never separate your skills from the place that you learned it. That way it's answering all of those questions of how do you know that? So it's like that's just another piece of information. Just looking at this, otherwise I'm like, I have small design things, like she has her location on a separate line when it could very well fit in that same line with her all of the rest of her contact information. Otherwise, I think it's a really good resume. Do I think it's boring? Absolutely. That's why I will always challenge you guys to pick something that's a little bit more representative of who you are. If this is a template you like, I apologize because I don't mean to call you boring, but I think it's just there's not a lot of design forward effort put into this one. But it's still a very strong resume. Moving on to this one, based off the do's and don'ts that I just told you guys, what is the first thing I'm going to tell Victor? Picture. He looks very nice, very kind man, it seems, but we don't want to make assumptions about him. I just did. So I would tell him take that photo off. And another thing that I know about psychology and visual communication, when I receive resumes like this, it's such a fun little game that I get to play. I can tell you right now, Victor is definitely really good at his job, but he's probably introverted. And the way that I know that is because his name is so teeny tiny compared to the rest of the text. I never really run into that a ton. Usually it's the opposite of people making their name super big and I'm like, you gotta fix that. But I would tell him to increase the size of his name just so it matches the rest of the design flow a little bit better. One other thing I will say, he has his summary up there. Higher paying jobs, I think it's perfectly fine to have that section up there, or like a bio, about me. Canva calls it so many things like profile statement, personal summary, whatever the case may be. I've realized from talking to other people and then also when I'm hiring, I don't have time to read that section. So now I'm going to challenge you guys. If you have a resume that has that, if you want to keep the section, you can, but I want to challenge you to take that information and see if you could fit it somewhere more useful, like the experience or the skills. Any other questions right now? Yes.
When it regards like the skills and the languages tab, he has like ratings for himself.
I was just about to get to that, but ask your question.
Is that a bad idea? Should we just label the skills and not have like ratings, or should we kind of like be more honest with our employer and say like, hey, you know, I'm not the best at this, but I could get better, because that would maybe show room for improvement, or does that just look tacky?
That is a beautifully worded and excellent question, because I was just about to tell you about this one. I have definitely created resumes for people that have what this is called. It's a skill scale. I was like, this is great. I was making these for many people, and then I went to like a conference where they were like, never do a skill scale, and I was like, I was like, why don't we do that for those dumb people who have done that? Not me, just wondering, why would you not do that? And the person was telling me, she was like, when I'm looking at a resume like this, and I see that Victor said that he's highly organized, I don't know what that's in comparison to. It doesn't mean anything to me. It looks nice, but it has no intentionality behind it. I don't know what it means. So the only way that I've come to keep the skill scale, because I think it's a really great way to break up the information. Now, if people want to keep it, I tell them add some tick marks on there that say like years, or add some numbers and like numeric value to the things that you want to say that you are skilled in. So here he says he's at the end of the scale and highly organized. I do believe that is very vague. I don't know exactly what that means, but if while he was in college, he was actually taking, or his minor was like business and organization structure, I would tell him, then use the 4-year like degree as your benchmark. So do a tick mark of 1, 2, 3, 4, write years at the bottom so we know what the numbers are indicating, and then go ahead and put yourself at the end of the scale. But one thing I will say is like, don't pick something that like a number that is so small or so achievable so that all of your skills are 4. Like I have 4 years expertise in all of the things. Kind of stagger it a little bit just because it looks like you're being egotistical. So I have to tell people that. But pick a number that makes sense for whatever it is that you're trying to convey that you have skills within. Same thing for the languages. He could keep the bubbles the same, just write years at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that would be the best way to indicate that. Questions on any of that? Yes.
You said like previously on the previous resume to include your skills within like your professional experience. Yep. If you learned those skills at college, like for example, Excel, how would you include it within?
You don't have to. I think the bulk of your skills, it's a great way to start the bullet points that you have for your job. You don't have to try to fit all of the skills there. I just think it's a great way to like remember for yourself when you're making your resume, what did I learn at this? Lead with that. Bless you. So for here, I think this is additional skills, especially for like a higher paying job, like a marketing specialist. You're gonna have way more skills than just what you learned at your job. So you could like things from class, things that you learned doing freelance, things that you learned elsewhere. You could just make a skills section like this.
Would you suggest in skills, like, because like these are all like soft skills for the most part, would you suggest having like softwares you're proficient in? Because like maybe you're not like certified in them, because like I know Adobe certifications cost money, so maybe you're not certified in them, but you're highly proficient in them or highly skilled in them. Would you suggest putting that in skills or just showing that in the experience?
Both, first of all. Also, as it relates to like certifications in certain software, they are expensive and hiring teams know that. So they don't expect you to have that. So instead, I would tell you to put how many years you have been utilizing that software. That's what I do because I'm not certified, but I'm like, I've been using Adobe for 7 years. So they know the drill with that. Did I answer all of your questions?
Yes.
Hold on, you said something else about skills. Adobe, the software, yes. Also, with the software, put things that are of note. I'm so tired of people putting Microsoft Office. I'm like, if you don't know how to type on a word processing document at this point, you must be 700 years old, because don't put that anymore. We know you know how to use Google and Word. Pick things that are of importance. I'm like, I see people do that just to fill the space. Use real skills, like you mentioned, hard and soft. Don't put, I know how to read. I'm like, that's the same thing, so don't do that. Yes.
For softwares and such, like certifications, do they expect you, if you have been certified before in like the Adobe suite, do they expect you to keep up with the constant updates, because they update every single year?
Yeah, I would say most people wouldn't keep track of that, but I would say don't lie if you haven't touched the software in a long time and be like, I'm certified, I know what I'm doing. but be upfront about that. Like if you were interviewing and they asked you, be like, I am certified. I will let you know that I haven't used the program in about a year, but I am still proficient enough to complete the task that you're going to ask me to do. So I would say that. Did I answer the question, right?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Hobbies tab, yay or nay?
Which one?
The one that says hobbies.
Oh, hobbies.
It's like,
That's a really good one too. This one, again, it's a toss-up in marketing because I'm like in mass comm, they're doing so much hiring based off of not just your skills, but your personality as well. You have space, try it, but it depends on the job that you're applying for. If you're going into sales, they don't give a rat's that you like reading for fun or video gaming for fun. They're like, what can you bring to the company? But if you work at an ad agency like me, they're like, video games, we freaking love video games. Welcome to the team, that sort of thing. So I would say use your best judgment about the places you're applying to. And if you feel like they're creative enough to accept that and like it would be meaningful for them, include it. Otherwise, I would say for marketing, probably not. I saw another hand, yes.
How would you quantify like the soft skills? I feel like for some soft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, if you are going to put any sort of skills like with a measurement, don't choose soft skills. Typically, you also don't have to use the skill scale. You can just list your skills there, and that would work just as fine. One thing I will say, I do recommend that people separate their hard skills and soft skills when they list them, just because one, it's more words for the ATS to track. So I'm like, maybe one site or one place doesn't have organization on their like list of requirements, but another job does. And then it turns out it didn't say organization, it said organized. So it's like just making sure that you have the maximum amount of words and phrases and terms that are going to be relevant for the job is what I would say. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, along with like Adobe programs, so if you know multiple, should you just put like Adobe Suite or should you list them all out?
Again, same thing, to maximize the amount of skills that you have and amount of words for the tracking systems, put all of them and write them out. You don't have to say Adobe in front of all of them, just InDesign, Premiere Pro, Illustrator, and that would be perfectly fine. Yes?
Certifications, if it's like something that we got for a hobby, should we still apply that to that if it's like a very reputable certification or no?
You said it's like a hobby?
Yeah, like a hobby for something.
Yeah, of course. I'm like, anything that can prove that you know something really well, put it on there.
Two-part question. So on a resume, most of the time you don't put like why you left the job, but on an application, what would you like? What's the best thing to say?
Have they asked you that recently? I
Yeah, a
haven't
lot
seen
of
it.
applications do ask you.
Really, they asked you why you've left a previous job. I'm like, I don't know if I've seen that in a while. I would say, did I leave the screen? I didn't. What would you put in that? What I would recommend? It depends. I'm like, I would probably tell you to be honest. If it's something that you're not really wanting to share, you could probably type that and be like, information available upon request is what I would say. But they're gonna flag you and be like, what are you hiding over there? So I'm like, I don't know. It depends on what your reasoning is behind that. I wouldn't be able to tell you right now a one-size-fits-all answer. And then you said two-part question. Did you have anything?
That was the first part. Is like you wouldn't put that on a resume, right? Like why you left.
No, probably not. Yeah, and also it's like it's not a good efficient way of utilizing the space. Just like lead with all the do's and all the things that you know how to do. Yes.
Two things. My sister is a manager for a company, and she said she will never ever hire someone that said that their past management was poor. Because if you're bashing your past manager to your new manager, they're just gonna do this to me. So don't probably do that. Should we use icons, like little like things, like for example under contact, it has like little things that look cute. Should we do that?
I mean, if you like the iconography, when I do this presentation for mass communicators, I tell them, yes, use them. But again, for marketing, it's like, it's not always relevant. And sometimes it'll take away from the application tracking systems. They're like, we can't even figure out what this is. So it might mess up the code. I will tell you if you want to, yes, but it's definitely not necessary. You don't have to. Yes.
Should we include references?
Great question. Everybody always says, I typically tell people now at the bottom, if you have space, you can put their name and contact information. But now I just tell people to put that little tab that you see on like the other templates of references available upon request, because it's just easier that way. And it's like, how are you going to fit everything on the page? And there's so many things to go through.
Because I've heard many hiring managers are looking for that.
So they are not, or they are.
Like it depends.
It really does depend, especially like at internships and like out of college jobs. They don't have time, from all the applicants, they don't have time to review your references. Higher paying jobs, absolutely, they do check your references, but it depends.
Sorry, and how many would you?
I would say probably 2 to 3. Yes.
For creatives, for the portfolio, a lot of jobs want your like a portfolio link on your resume nowadays. So how would you put that on there?
Same where up there, like where his LinkedIn is. And if you don't want to put your LinkedIn, because typically I put my LinkedIn on my resume, I just put my website up there instead. Yes.
I've been told if we've traveled internationally mostly, should you include that on your resume?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but yes, anytime you've traveled outside of the country or if you've studied abroad or anything like that is so lucrative to know, because it's like, not only do you know how to do your business here, you can do it elsewhere. That's really impressive. They really like to see that. You said I already talked to you. So
well, just as a follow-up to that, should we add in, if we have like our passport or whatnot, to include that we could travel internationally as well?
I don't think so. I think they would assume, and like they would ask you, like, should you have to do that? They'll make sure that you have the correct paperwork. So you should be good. Yes?
Is that even under the assumption if it was on vacation or strictly work related?
Work related. That's a great thing to know. Beautiful. Excellent. I saw another hand back here. Yes.
Should you include that you're an international student?
That's what's tough, because I know how hard it is for my international students and people to find jobs. There's so many like rules and things that the companies can't keep up with, like visa wise. I feel like you should, because it's going to come up later, and a lot of places reject international students because of the workload and the paperwork that it takes to keep you in the country and also working for the company. So it's like you could end up being a liability. There's a lot of things that go into being international. I don't know if I would say it outright, but be on the lookout within the job requirements if it highlights anything about not being able to support international people. So I'll say don't include it, but if you have external languages and stuff that you know, I would say include that. I'm like, that's a positive you can win with. That's a good question, but I'm like, it's so tough for the international students.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I would not include it on the resume because for most applications, I don't know who asked, so just looking at everyone. But they ask you like via the application, like if you require sponsorship in the future, and that's why you put it. Like I wouldn't put it on the resume.
Yeah, super tough. I always feel so bad. Any other questions? Beautiful. I'm like, besides all the things that we covered, I really think this is a great example of a resume that would work for the ATS system and also just for any marketing jobs. I would not recommend this if you're going into creative marketing because it's a little bland, but it does have a little pizzazz compared to Claudia's, but it's not enough to be like, oh wow, you could help support the design of my company or do anything like consumer facing with design. Otherwise, looks good to go. If he's like an immediate student, again, I would recommend take the education, put it at the top. Otherwise, great. Last one. This one is very vibrant. There's nothing wrong with the pink, but based off of this resume, what is the first thing I'm going to tell Sarah? Yeah, you can just shout it out.
Picture.
Which one? The picture? Absolutely. What's the second thing I'm going to tell her? Cursive. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm like, is it fineness? Is it fins? Is it? I'm like, what is this? I'm like, if I'm trying to read it quickly, I don't know what her last name is, and I don't want to fish for whatever it is. I think it's shows her personality and something that she likes, but this is not an efficient way to prove or to welcome yourself into the graces of this person who might give you a job. I would advise her to, if she wants, she could keep the color. I would absolutely tell her to switch the font to make it more legible, especially quickly. And I also want to make sure you guys know, like when I'm doing work, I have to make sure all of the things that I do that are like consumer facing are ADA compliant. That's American Disabilities Association, I believe. But it's like there are a lot of people with disabilities. There are a lot of people from different walks of life. Some people can't read cursive and they're like CEOs. That doesn't mean they're stupid, but I just want to make sure that you know you have to make it super legible for anybody from anywhere to figure out what we need to know about you. So I would recommend that she removes it. I actually really like the way that she has her work experience kind of sectioned out like that in those little boxes. But as you can see, there's a ton of information there. There's nothing wrong with doing that at the student level. But what I will say is that is a lot of bullet points. That is a lot of information, and there's probably duplicate information. So make sure you're not repeating yourself in terms of the skills that you have and the things that you have learned how to do. Other things I would say, remember the skill scale. I think it has some quantities or numeric value to that. Hobbies, great. Education, of course, if she was an immediate student or like just recently graduated, I would ask her, I would recommend putting it to the top if she's looking for internships and jobs. She also has her bio at the top. Again, it's It's redundant. Strong writer, and then she has all of these skills in writing that she's been doing for years. I think is redundant. You're wasting a lot of space, so it's like, don't do that, is what I would recommend. Otherwise, I don't dislike the resume. I know a lot of marketers might be like, ooh, not the pink, but I'm like, at this day and age, we cannot forget the fact that marketing has to match the way that consumers behave these days. And a lot of the times when I have gotten in arguments with some of our very own marketing professors and marketing professionals, like, it is unprofessional to do a resume in pink. I had a student, she told me, she's like, my professor told me that it's unprofessional. I'm like, with all due respect, I disagree, and I think he is wrong. And also what I've noticed, like, those same people are the same people who are like, why does my surgeon have gauges and tattoos? I'm like, you want to die on a table with spleen on the floor? That's a really small detail to be pulling out of all of this information that there's pink on there. So I would, again, if that's something that's important to you, I tell you to stick to your guns, because again, this is your resume and it's representative of who you are. Take that into consideration. But again, it's like a lot of the sales jobs or anything that's like super corporate, they don't care what your resume looks like in terms of color. It's all about the information. But if you're going to go into something creative, it does matter. Questions? Yes.
So in the layout that she has, like, if you were to replace the picture, like, what could you put?
Good question. I forgot to say, because I didn't tell you guys about the design. Yes, what would I put instead of the photo? I always tell students, remove the photo and you can put either your initials there. It usually works just as well, or your logo if you have one. Or if you don't want anything there, you don't have to put anything there at all. Just make sure everything's like evenly spaced and makes sense on the layout. Yes.
How do you feel about the social media?
For me and my job, because I work in social media, I always put it up front, because I will say, if you're going into a job where you will have to do social media as part of your job, they will be looking for it. And if you don't put an account up there, they're going to search for it. And what I love reminding people, every platform you say yes to the terms and conditions to, and there are companies that get paid to bypass your locked accounts. So don't hide behind that of like, oh, what if they don't, I don't want them to look at this kind of stuff, but it's like, if you don't give them social media to like deal with, and that's something you're gonna have to do with your job, they're gonna have a lot of questions of like, why aren't you having any sort of work facing social media? It's not necessarily a 100% requirement, but I do know anybody who works in social media, they'll be like, what is your activity level? They'll ask you your favorite app, ask you what you like about it, if you notice any analytic differences between any of the other ones, and you should have a little bit of knowledge about that. So I include mine, and I recommend including it, because if you don't put it, they're gonna find it anyway. Just so you know. Yes.
If you're like, I see, would you recommend putting Twitter? Because like, if you're not like super active on it, like you have it, but you don't really post on it.
I mean, you don't have to. It depends on what job you're doing. For me, if I'm like a copywriter, I do put my Twitter on there. I don't use it that frequently, and I tell them that. I use it as a research tool to look up other things. I'm not necessarily posting anything, and I just tell them that in the interview if that ever comes up. And if you have space to fit something, put it. If it's more information for them, you can go ahead and put it. But if you don't want it on there, you don't have to put it on there. Did I see another hand back here? Yes.
I've had a teacher tell me for marketing students that she recommends that you submit a black and white resume and hand out colorful resumes in person. What's your thoughts on that?
Again, every day I have to get in fights with these people, and I'm like, it doesn't change any of the information at all. I understand why she would say that. Secondly, by the way, companies are so cheap with their color ink. If they print their resume that you sent to them, it's gonna be black and white anyway, just so you know. I show up and I'm like, what is this that they printed? And then I hand them my own. I'm like, in color. It's so freaking cheap. I don't advise that. I disagree respectfully, and also very disrespectfully. To be a marketing professor and to tell someone that, especially with knowing how TikTok and all of the other platforms are so creative, and that we have to lead with that. We have to follow that. Regardless of how long it takes marketing to get there, you're gonna have to do it. So I always tell people, I would say no, but if you feel comfortable doing what she says, then you can do that. I wouldn't judge you and be like, how dare you go against what I said to you? I think it's fine either way. Yes.
When it comes to social media, how do they find you? Because personally, I've had to do an audit on myself, and there's like, I can't find any information on myself.
It's only if you have your first and last name there. So it's like some people, it's so hilarious to me. They'll put their first and last name and lock and be like, they won't find it. I'm like, you gave them the blueprint and a map, essentially. But if you have, like, mine is like vocally Ceara, no one ever finds it, so it's like just things like that to keep in mind. If it's your first and last name, they're gonna find it. They're not gonna do digging. I know I just said they're gonna find it anyway. That's only if they need it for something. And it will ask you if you don't have it, and if they find it on like something, they'll be like, what's this about? And then they'll start to see the other things. If you're a good candidate, by the way, I'm like, they're not gonna do that for everybody. It's like, it's only if they're like, oh, we really like this person, we think they're gonna be a great fit, but we need to do all of our due diligence to make sure they're not doing crazy stuff on the side. Does that answer your question? Yes. Excellent, yes.
LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, makes sense. Facebook, TikTok, should we incorporate those sort of things, especially, you know, like if we've made, you know, more dumb content for like a certain app over another, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Again, it depends on the job you're applying for. For me, I'm like, since I have to do social media, I link all of my socials because my link is the same. So I just put it there and then put all the icons for the platforms I have. If you want to, you can. If it's not going to be beneficial for your job, I say remove it because it's like, remember, save that space for things that like are super important and imperative for the job. Did I answer everything? Full in the back, yes?
For projects for the future, when we worked a few, should we include like hyperlinks to them? So if it's a project they may have not heard of, they don't have to do like research, they can go directly to it to see what we worked on, and then would we state what we did if it was a large project so they know, or should we just state that we worked on it?
Just say that you worked on it would be perfectly fine. Are we pressed for time?
Yes.
Absolutely, no problem, no problem. This is pretty much everything that I go over. One of the last things, I know y'all are so familiar with SWOT analyses. I tell people to do one for yourself because internally it makes you do a lot of work and research about yourself. What are my strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats? You literally cannot answer until you start looking into the jobs that you qualify for and the jobs that you're interested in. FAQs I always get. Best place to find jobs and internships, LinkedIn, every single time. How many internships? I didn't used to put a number to it now, but now I know for a fact it's 2 to 3 before you graduate. And I always say, try to study abroad if you haven't already. It's super important and they love to see it. Any secret tips? Always ask questions. It's such an important thing. I know everybody says it, but it really makes people stand out as good candidates. And then always remember the basics. I still use the SWOT analyses, as you see. I'm like, I hear people all the time like, when am I going to use this? I still use it for work. So I always tell people, hello, look at me right now before everybody goes right now. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me right now. Everybody, look at me. If you need anything, resume, portfolio, you need somebody to pull your life together at the end because you're at the club and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing in my life. Send me a message on LinkedIn and I will answer you. I'm going to have to get back to you on Monday if you're out partying on Saturday, but anything at all, contact me, let me know what you need and I got you. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Sorry for ruining the
It's because I was looking at all the graphic designers because like you guys should still try to come to like a long picture. I was looking at that. He's the fundraiser for that. You add one. I have one straight my LinkedIn. I have to make one myself. I've been looking at it. Yeah. That's what I always say when people I'm like, this is 6 was so fucking amazing. Yes, that's why I went to go look at it. I went to a completely different high school.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'm from Tampa. I'm hoping I'll be back. No, it's a happy strength. Mixed. So good. My mouth is watering. But yeah,
Ow. Oh, no.
How much was your ankle?
Yeah, it was. The highlight of my week. I let the bitch. Oh, okay. You see what I'm doing?
Figure it out. You're good. You're good.
Like, I feel in a certain way. I just let it fall this weekend, and I got.
Hey, so you're moving. Come on, let's go.
It's like the one benefit of having like my ODG. I don't turn into a.
Are you going to
I have to go. I'm just not.
I start charging. No, you should. I always do that. I'll catch you.
I think we're all kind of like